This company's never been more profitable.
You mean hugely profitable?
I like it.
DavePorter.com presents The Profitable Cleaner, a podcast on commercial cleaning sales and entrepreneurship. The one podcast that's not afraid to discuss real sales strategies with real cleaning professionals that produce real profits and real results.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Profitable Cleaner podcast. I am very excited for today's episode, and we are going to be talking about some things that I don't think always hit our agenda on this show when it comes to the commercial cleaning industry. I'm very fortunate to be joined by Sabrina here. Sabrina, thank you. This is actually take 2 of the show because we had technical difficulties on take 1. So thank you for the reschedule and thank you for joining me here today. How are you?
Absolutely. I'm great. And I'm happy to be here with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sabrina, maybe just for simple introductions, why don't you give the people listening and myself a little bit of background about Sabrina and what you do currently?
Great. So my name is Sabrina Duren, and I'm currently the director of sales at a very cool robotic vacuuming company called TAILOS. And I'll dive more into that in a little while. But the background on me, before I worked here, I worked for a company called Hot Schedules for about 7 years. And so the real focus there was making sure that you had happier employees, you had that employee engagement. And then it focused a lot on labor scheduling, labor optimization, and labor forecasting. So my heart's always been kind of tied around not only the employee experience, but optimizing labor and understanding different ways that we can utilize robotics to optimize labor.
I love that. And actually, it's kind of funny that you talk about just your passion for the people and just kind of the culture. When you think of commercial cleaning, the one thing I've learned being in this industry the last few years, it's a people-driven business, right? And then here we are. You talk about the passion for the people, and then you're talking robotics also through TAILOS. One thing I hear a lot about is, okay, automation, AI, robotics, they're going to replace humans, but doing a little bit of research on you guys, your first big statement on your website is empowering humans. So talk to me about empowering humans, robotics versus people, all of that probably common narrative you hear in your world.
Absolutely. So empowering humans is really just the ability to be resilient, right? So if you look at the labor struggle that any commercial cleaning company is going to have right now, whether you're a building service contractor, whether you're just in a big commercial space, whether you're in a hotel, whatever it is, you're going to have a labor shortage, right? So being able to be resilient and being able to drop in a robotic vacuum when you have someone call out sick, or you have that employee turnover that's over 140% for house cleaners in the different industries. So really empowering humans, it can be seen at different levels, right? At the employee level, empowering humans is really like wrapping your arms around having a solution to use, having a robotic vacuum I can put my hands on and I can have it used in the space. The reason for that is that carpal tunnels is a widespread problem. It's the number 2 issue causing workman's comp issues in the industry. And so what happens is people work with a vacuum and they don't use their whole body to push forward. They're just using their wrist. And so the people are empowered to save their wrists and then to make their lives easier. You've got your next group of people, your owners of these buildings, your administrators. They want to empower people to have those resilient operations. And they also want to empower this deep cleaning that robotics can provide. So our vacuums are actually stronger than your typical stand-up vacuum and even stronger than your typical commercial like Windsor sensor vacuum. So we're able to get a deep, deep clean in any space. And so you've got the employees empowered at that level, and you've got the owners empowered at a level where they're seeing cleanliness all the way through their sites. And that can be tracked through dashboards, through maps. I don't want to get too deep on you here, but the way that our robot operates is it works like a self-driving car. So it works like a Tesla. So it maps any space that it goes into autonomously. And so you can drop it in any space. It will figure out where it is and where it needs to clean. So yeah, some really cool tech there.
No, I love that. So let's, before we get into like the features of like robotics and all of that, I want to kind of back up a little bit and talk about just robots versus humans and how that relates to commercial cleaning. So like, I think for a lot of cleaning owners listening, they realize, and you hear it in ISSA and all the big outlets out there that, hey, automation's coming to commercial cleaning. Robotics is coming to commercial cleaning. And I think there's still a big segment of our industry that believes, okay, this is a thing, but it might not be a thing for my business or for my clients. How do you make that transition and kind of like start educating yourself on, okay, maybe, automation, robotics could be a thing for my business. Like what would step one be from your standpoint, Sabrina?
Yeah, well, I think step one is really just understanding your business and seeing where robotics fits in, right? And the real evaluation that you can do there is understanding, like, are you able to clean all the spaces that you guarantee can be cleaned to your customers today? And the answer that I get typically from commercial cleaners is no. They can't guarantee that space can get cleaned because it's too much space and you can't vacuum that much space with the amount of manpower or man hours that can be allotted to that building. So the first thing I would say is really look at your business and think, are all the spaces getting cleaned? If my client came in this building, are they going to have a spotless floor, knowing that a human was able to touch this spot, not just the heavy debris areas? The second part of that is understanding, is your building service trying to be stronger with ESG compliance? Are you trying to lower your amount of cords in your facility? So we're actually 60% more energy efficient to use a robotic vacuum, just for our example. And so many robotic products can help with that green and efficiency standards that a lot of commercial cleaners are looking at these days. So I think that's important to evaluate as well, is what do you want your business to look like in 5 years? Do you picture yourself using corded vacuums then? And if so, what kind of vacuums? What does the strength look like? And how can you ensure that you're going to, again, have that full cleaning power and be able to cover the full area that's been quoted?
I think that's really interesting. Like, yeah, are you still using cords 5 years from now? Are you still following the same process, even with a growing business and an evolving industry 5 years from now? A good mentor used to tell me, think more and before. Yes. And what that means is like, hey, how can I do more, and how can I think of that before the rest of the market catches up, my competitors catch up? I'm curious, because you sit on the other side of like the desk than a lot of people listening to the show. What are some common, like when you're talking to a commercial cleaning owner or a director of operations, just a janitorial company, what are some common like reservations before they kind of start empowering their humans through automation? Like, what are just like, what's some common objections you hear?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that the biggest one that we hear or that we face in general is change management. So making sure that you can because there's still people in the loop, right? Robotics, it's not 20 years from now and we don't have robots doing everything, right? There's still human interaction that has to happen with the robots. So making sure that your staff doesn't feel like they're being replaced by machines, that they do understand that this is bringing value to their jobs and is not trying to replace them. All of that is real and all of that has to be addressed. So I think change management is the number one objection and struggle that we have, that we come across. Number two, I'm trying to think of another common objection that people have. Maybe price, because it can be expensive to purchase robotics up front. And I'll tell you one thing, robotics are getting less expensive year over year. just like Moore's law, where he says the amount of computing power is going to increase or almost double year over year. The same with robotics. And he also, Gordon E. Moore also predicted, he was a co-founder of Intel. He also predicted that the cost of this computing power would go down. We're finding that with robotics today. So where our LiDAR used to cost us 10 times as much, the part that spins on top that's able to spit the laser beams out to map the area, used to cost us 10 times more. So the cost of robotics is definitely going down every day we move forward. So one thing that we've done to kind of combat that, James, is we've put a lease model into our robotic solution to help so that people can get a return on investment right away.
Sure, I think that makes total sense, and I that's an interesting objection. I wouldn't have guessed, like change management, right? Like how do you bridge that gap? I'm curious just to your thoughts on this. I don't know if you've actually ever heard this, but I'm putting myself in an owner operator's seat right now. It's like, okay, I believe in TAILOS, or I believe in robotics. I know that this is a thing. I'm wanting to test it out. How do I like justify and sell that to like almost my client? Like, hey, typically I have one cleaning professional here. They're vacuuming the floors day in and day out or every night. And now I got to tell my client, listen, I'm going to have a robot do it, but I'm still going to charge you hourly or whatever. Have you ever came across something like that?
No, not typically. The thing that we hear more often is that they want to be able to prove, that the cleaning was done. And so with that, we're able to provide, like for our solution and for a lot of robotic solutions, the maps that we generate to actually do the cleaning, we're able to generate those for our clients as well and show exactly where the vacuum went. When you look at it from, if you're not the owner operator, but if you're the person wanting the autonomous vacuum, if you look at it from a cost perspective and from a lease perspective, you can run an autonomous vacuum for $1.72 per hour. So when you're looking at commercial cleaning, you might be looking at, $18 to $22 an hour, not even including fully burdened labor with taxes and insurance and things like that. So I think for a selling point in general, being able to understand how much the cost benefit analysis. But for an owner, I think being able to see those maps and being able to know that the space is deep cleaned, it's going to reserve your carpets for longer. You're just not going to have to steam clean as often is one thing we're testing right now. We have a company, a group that we're working with where they steam clean the carpets every week. So we're going to see if we can cut that time down in between because we know we're deep cleaning now. So yeah, just those are a few of my ideas.
I think those are great ideas, and we're called the profitable cleaner because our goal is to help make cleaning owners more profitable. And it sounds like, if I'm kind of understanding correctly, that like a TAILOS, your guys' robotics could actually increase profitability because I'm less dependent maybe on labor and all the costs that go into labor, and therefore I can not obviously replace my staff, but supplement my staff and give them a new tool, which, might free up time for them, might free up cost for me, and ultimately for the company increases profitability. Am I kind of understanding that right?
You're exactly right. So it's really this redistribution of labor rather than a replacement of labor. You have your people who are able to focus on other tasks. And one thing we like to say on our website is leave the dull and dirty tasks to the robots. Let us do that. Let us handle that piece of it and then move on through your day.
Absolutely. So talk to me, let's talk about the relationship between the cleaning staff and the robots, right? Talk to me, like, what does that typically look like? A company says, I'm all in. I want to do this. Obviously, I'm not getting rid of my staff. I love my people.
Yeah.
What's that relationship between like the cleaner and the robot look like?
Absolutely. So first of all, we do training to make sure that all the staff is able to see. So we'll either go on site and be with that team in person, or we'll do a virtual on site unboxing and training. So we'll make sure that they have the support that they need from the very beginning. And then the way that they kind of partner with the robots is it's different in every building. But if you think about the robots, they're about 1 foot wide, 2 feet long, and 9 inches high, right? And they weigh about 17 pounds. So they weigh about as much as your typical vacuum. So if you think about getting them from one place to the next, you're usually putting them on a cart. So you've got 4 to 6 robots on a cart, and you've got usually one to 2 people interacting with those robots per day. Now, one thing to keep in mind for the profitable cleaners is that the more you run the robots, the higher return on investment that you get. For every square foot that you run the robot, you're gaining more efficiency, more cleaning power, and you're saving more on labor. So that's an important factor to keep in mind. So often we'll see people run the robots not only in the morning shift, they'll then recharge the batteries and run them again during the night shift, just to get optimal usage.
That is very interesting there. I think that's a good bridge between the relationship of the person versus the robot. Talk to me about, so obviously there's a lot of like at home self-sustaining vacuums and all of that. Like what's the difference between like a robot I can buy on Amazon for my house versus like I don't want to say a commercial grade robot, but like a TAILOS robot, like Rosie. I know that's a product, and I'm going to ask you about that in just a minute. But talk to me about how it's different than like a consumer vacuum.
Absolutely.
That we use at home.
Consumer vacuums that are used at home, they just aren't meant to operate in commercial spaces. So we've actually done some testing on this. Because that was our founder's first idea, of course. Why aren't people using the Roomba or the iRobot in their homes? And so we did some testing on it, and we just found that the battery couldn't hold up, and that even sometimes they were, sometimes smoking. They just weren't made for commercial use. And so now, if you look at Rosie, who we'll speak about in a minute, our robot, we're about 2 to 3 times faster than a Roomba, so we can cover the square footage. A Roomba, if you put it in, let's say something we all know, let's say a typical sized hotel room, right? Let's say 325 square feet. It would take it 30 minutes to clean that space. So you need a vacuum to go much faster than that, and to be more durable and to have a longer battery power, because you have to be able to run these vacuums anywhere between 5 and 10 hours per day. And that's just in commercial cleaning. If we're talking about an airport setting or something like that, we might be talking about running these robots 12 to 18 hours a day.
Okay, interesting. Do you think that there's any like fear or reservation, like from the cleaning owner's perspective, that like, okay, I roll this out with my client, they find out that I'm using TAILOS, Rosie, whatever. Why wouldn't they just replace me as the cleaning company?
No, I think that I think as long as they can understand and see the maps, I think they're going to see, and you can understand the value proposition behind the deeper cleaning. I think they're going to get it. I don't think people care as much how their space is cleaned as they do it clean.
Yeah.
And right now it's not getting cleaned.
Yeah, totally. It doesn't matter how it happens. I just need it to happen. And I think that's 1000% true. So talk to me, who is Rosie? Talk to me about Rosie and give us the benefits of Rosie.
Sure. Well, James, I grew up in the 80s, and so I'm familiar with the Jetsons. But for anyone who isn't, Rosie was the maid from the Jetsons, and she is an adorable little robot. And so Rosie is what we named our small robotic vacuum. And she's named after Rosie from the Jetsons because she's really our CEO and founders. She's the boots or the legs of what he hopes to someday grow into a fully autonomous robot. But he decided before you could build anything else, you had to build the feet. So that's why he has created the most sophisticated indoor navigation algorithms that exist to have this little vacuum be able to run circles around any kind of chairs, tables, or obstacles it might see.
That's awesome. And just for people listening, and even for my own understanding, is Rosie kind of the sole robot that you guys work with right now?
Today, yes, we're looking at other iterations of Rosie right now, and hopefully we'll bring something else to the market, in the next few years. But today, we're just focused on Rosie. She's out in hundreds of commercial cleaning, senior living, hotels, all kinds of businesses.
I like it. So you guys talk about having an AI platform. AI is a very big buzzword. I still think it's very misunderstood, probably even from myself. Talk to me about what your AI platform is and actually like what that means.
Yeah, so AI for us today means very little compared to what it's going to mean for us for the future. So AI, like you said, it's a big word, it's a buzzword. Today, we're using AI with our machine learning algorithms, and we use that for our obstacle detection. So not only do we have the LiDAR on top, but we have infrared cameras that are scanning as well. So, and we also have 13 different sensors on the robot to be able to detect different things, such as spatial capabilities, as well as being able to see things like stairs or an elevator, for example. So,
yeah, it sounds like it's always continually learning to improve how it operates. Would that be correct?
So that's how it works today. But in the future, what it'll do is by the end of this year, what we'll do is we'll feed it tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of pictures of different office spaces, huge conference spaces, any type of a hotel room, a senior living facility cafeteria. We're going to feed it all of these different room types, hallways, in open corridors. And what it'll do by the end of this year is those machine learning feeds will now allow the bot to operate on AI completely. So it will know exactly what space it's in, which will then allow it to know which planner, which basically the planner is just what tells the robot which way to navigate. It will tell it what type of planner to use based on the AI and the model.
That's awesome. And then for those of you guys listening that might be kind of new to learning about AI, basically with like a Rosie's in hundreds or thousands of different facilities, and she's getting that data from multiple facilities, which can compare to and help operate within your one facility. Would that be correct, Sabrina?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome.
And she's even got advanced sensors on her as well. So she can detect things like Wi-Fi signal strength, volatile organic compounds, dust, dirt, mold, humidity. So Rosie can do more than just vacuum.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually that good segue to my next question, which you did not know I was going to ask. You kind of talked about the data that Rosie can provide. You mentioned that here earlier on this show. Talk to me data again is something that's big in the cleaning space right now. There's I think there's three phases of cleaning companies. There's the old school, and old school doesn't mean that you have to be around forever, but people that just operate more in the more traditional old school manner. Then there's phase two where you kind of you're starting to evolve as a cleaning company and go from more traditional just mop and bucket and corded vacuums to this evolution of okay, maybe I need to up my operations. And then I think there's that phase three to where people are making their operations more efficient through data. And the big question that we hear is, how do you measure data in commercial cleaning? What data is important? Talk to me about the data that you guys get from Rosie and some of those data points and why that's important.
Great. Absolutely. So I think the most important thing to measure is the clean, right? So the most important data that we're going to look at is the telemetric data. And what that's going to tell us is it's going to tell us exactly how many square feet have been covered, the amount of time that square footage took to get covered. It's going to show us a map of what area was covered during that time. And then we're also going to be able to see trends and dashboards related to that data. And those dashboards are getting more robust all the time. But that's some of the basic data that we measure to be able to give our clients that it's where they'll have no concern of clean, which is the most important thing. The other data that we can measure, like Wi-Fi signal strength, those are just interesting hotel use cases where someone said, can you do this? And our founder said, sure, we can do it. So we put a sensor on the robot that measures Wi-Fi signal strength. And so Rosie is, if you think about a robot that cleans the hallways in some of these hotels, it's the only piece of equipment that really traverses the whole space, the whole hotel. So it was picking up different low Wi-Fi signal strengths, and this hotel was able to save over $100,000 in Wi-Fi reimbursements. They had a huge problem with it. So it was an interesting piece of data to use. The volatile organic compounds, those will come more into play, I think, in future years, especially as we develop more products or develop Rosie into a second product. Right now, we're partnered with a few companies, but one of them is Lysol. So measuring things like volatile organic compounds, dust, dirt, mold, temperature, humidity, those are things that might someday need a disinfectant, right? So there's always interesting conversations happening in the background about that.
Yeah, absolutely. What is one of the biggest what's one of the biggest misconceptions, do you think, about robotics and the industry that you're in, especially when it comes to like commercial cleaning?
Oh my gosh, that it's like just for nerds, or that it's like really hard to understand. We all have a Roomba, folks. Like, we all have one. So it's just really this transfer of understanding how we can make this jump to commercial from consumer.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely think you're right on about there. Like, we get doubt with things that we don't know. And when we hear technologies involved in that, automatically we think it could be complex or complicated.
Yeah.
Which sounds like it's not the case, especially because technology theoretically makes our lives easier. And just based on like the information I got from TAILOS website, it sounds like you guys have a pretty smooth onboarding process.
Oh my gosh. Do you know what it takes to turn our robot on? You flip a switch on the back. That's like the main power switch. And then there's a simple play button on the front. So you literally press play and walk away. That's the whole interface.
Totally. Now, obviously, nothing's perfect. Rosie's not perfect. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. When mistakes happen, how do you know? Like, what's quality control look like?
Well, the interesting thing about having robots and having all this telemetry data is being able to understand when things fail. So we're able to see when, let's say, if a robot is going off course and it's constantly going left, 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 we look at the right wheel pod and say, oh, maybe something on the right wheel, maybe a wheel pod is out. So we're able to measure in the back end things that might go wrong with the robot before they could even happen.
No, I think that's big because and that's something that when you're looking at a labor perspective, we don't know if even your best cleaning pro might make a mistake that day, right? I mean, because there's human error with all of us. Absolutely. And so if you can kind of get ahead of it, take a more proactive approach with your quality control versus reactive, I'd say that's a competitive advantage. Talk to me. I got a few last questions for you here, Sabrina, and actually I could probably riff off another 50 questions, but I want to be as specific as possible for the people listening. Talk to us about some success stories you've seen with implementing robotics into commercial cleaning companies.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So I'm going to talk about a multifamily property that's really interesting to me. So we've partnered with a group called Camden, and working at their properties, what we've seen is they were the fastest property to reach 500,000 square feet vacuumed. So they're really one of our earlier adopters of robotics in the multifamily space. And so what we found with them is that they love the robots and they were able to save a full employee. So the person that used to vacuum all day no longer works there. I'm very sorry for their job, but at a Camden, which is one which is a huge community, to save one FTE, full-time employee, $25,000 was the savings there. And now the other employees are happy because they get to use the robots every single day. And they didn't end up having to hire another person to vacuum. They didn't have to let a person go. I think they were going to hire a person to vacuum, but they didn't have to end up hiring someone to vacuum the floors. Instead, they were able to save that and just use Rosie, and with an overall savings of $25,000 per year.
That's awesome. I think all of us listening right now would love to save $25,000 a year off of just like, and that's just like one instance, right, for our business.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's great. So I have to ask you, I'm in sales, you're in sales, you're director of sales. We talk sales on the show a lot. How do you guys do your current sales outreach to commercial cleaning owners? Obviously, we want you guys to get every listener listening to this. I want you to reach out to Sabrina. Take this podcast away from it, though. How do you guys do your own sales outreach? I'm just curious. One sales pro to another.
Yeah, great question. Great question. Well, so I worked at another company before this, and I brought over the sales pro that I know better than anyone. And her name's Diane. And she is a sales development representative, but she's a senior sales development representative. And she can talk to any commercial cleaner she could get them on the phone. She'll talk to them about robotics all day. So she's my secret weapon, honestly, James. There's no, we'll use emails. We're going to go to the ISSA show this year. We do lots of trade shows and things like that. But Diane is my secret weapon. I mean, I just give her a few people to call. She makes the dials and sets up some amazing conversations. Totally.
People, I think that's so awesome that you gave some love to Diane, your colleague there. People always ask, like, what's up? Like, where do we see our sales success? And I could give a shout out to our gal Daisy, right? Like, I mean, or it's really a team effort in sales. And so every time I have another sales pro on the call, I always like to hear what they're doing. And the fact that you just gave a shout out to your colleague, that's exactly right. It's really a team effort. So absolutely. Kudos to you. That tells me you are a good leader and director. So you passed the test.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So 2 last questions for you here. I'm going to, let's just start here. If people are listening to this show right now, they're like, you know what? I think this is interesting. I do know this is the future. Where do I start, and how do I get a hold of Sabrina, TAILOS? Like, what's the best way for someone in our audience to start the relationship with you and Rosie?
Sure. Well, you can send me an email at sabrina.duren, DUREN, at TAILOS, which is TAILOS.com. Or you can go to our website and fill out a web form as well. And Diane, who we gave a shout out to, will reach out to you, and you'll get a chance to talk to her.
Well said. So we'll go ahead and link. We will go ahead and link Sabrina's email in our show notes, and obviously TAILOS website. And if you guys did hear of Sabrina and TAILOS from the show, it's always awesome. I one of the coolest things about doing the show now for a year and a half, Sabrina, is like when awesome guests like yourself come back and say, man, I met 3 people through that podcast we did. So if you guys reach out to Sabrina, let her know that you guys heard her on the Profitable Cleaner. That's always just awesome feedback for us. We get nothing from it, just full disclosure, except for like we get excited that our audience took action and we have action takers listening.
Yeah.
So
and definitely follow me on LinkedIn, guys. I post videos every single day of Rosie cleaning different kinds of hotel spaces or commercial cleaning spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually, I just sent you a connection request before this call, and I was watching some of those videos, it's actually a good visual to have, right? It kind of shows you exactly what the setup looks like. All right. So we always end the show with kind of a fun question here, Sabrina. And I typically have this like podcast deck of cards. I don't know where they went, and I'm not going to like try to look for them right now. So I just got to ask you totally something random here. You're from Texas. I told you before the show that I'm like the first generation for God knows how long of my family not from Texas. What's the biggest misconception people have about Texians like yourself?
Well, about Texans, first of all, not Texans.
Well, actually, so I was corrected by my grandfather, my 92-year-old grandfather, that it's not Texans. Back in the day, it was Texians, so that's why I said it. But you can listen. I'll defer to you. But Texans, Texians, so that's why I said it.
Look, I'm not going to put your grandpa on blast.
Go for it.
You know what I mean?
It.
He's probably right.
Yeah.
He's probably right. I mean, definitely that we all ride horses. And because we don't. Some of us, I have ridden a horse before, but we don't do it all the time. But there's some conceptions that are true about Texas that I love. Like I love how nice people are here. I love how friendly and genuine most of the people are here. I live in Austin, so we've got a mesh of people from all over Texas and all over the U.S., but that's my favorite thing about Texas, the people.
Yeah, absolutely. I would actually 100% agree with that. Like, I totally agree with that. Awesome. I almost called you Rosie. That's so funny. Sabrina, not Rosie. Sabrina, I really appreciate your time here today on the show. If you guys are listening and you guys do want to learn more about robotics, you're the first robotics person we've ever had on the show. And if we have you on, it's because there's something about you we know, like, and trust. And we recommend that you guys get in contact with TAILOS or Sabrina. So Sabrina, thank you so very much. And maybe depending on the response we get, we might have to do a version 2 of the show.
Absolutely, James. Well, thank you so much and have a great day. Thanks.